In this demo, we're going to look at how to make our Crash Bandicoot. So what you should start off is extracting, opening it up, and what you should see as soon as you play is Crash Bandicoot sitting in the middle. We've got a platform and then some fruit sitting here. I've got quite a bit set up for you already. So I got a bunch of lists with the images created, or lists of images, so floors, platforms. I've got Crash Bandicoot himself, another list of all the fruit that we can make, a crystal image, and then the text, and as well as the variable that keeps track of that. So that's going to be in your top left corner. Going down into our setup, you can see that I've got them all labeled here. So we're creating some floors, creating the platforms, creating some fruit, as well as controlling what the score is to start. I've already created all the platforms. I've already created all the fruit. The one thing I did want to look at is the floors. So we can see if we hit play, it's kind of in the middle, the one that we have. We need another one over here to the left as well as to the right. We also need some space for all of these to shift. So for instance, as this bottom one is moving to the left, we don't want there to be a hole on the right hand side. So to do that, I'm just going to copy and paste these. And this first one is going to start to the far left hand side. So I'm going to change this 200 to 0. And we'll do that a couple more times. So now I need one to the right of it. So if this is 200, I've made all of these 200 long just so they don't get pixelized. They could definitely be longer if you wanted them to be. And I'll make one more just in case so that we never do have a gap in there. All right, and I'm going to put that one to 600. So if I hit play now, we should see that these four images are meshed together. And we're going to have all of these images moving to the left as Crash Bandicoot moves. Now the same thing was done for all the platforms. You can see these platforms are off by 400 each. So there's 3 platforms in total. And then I went and found out where all the Wampa fruit should be for you. And there's just 6 of those sitting there. And we have one way at 9,060. And that's probably supposed to be 960. All right, moving down. So again, this is just controlling the size and the color of our text. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I want to do is get Crash Bandicoot moving. Now we have to understand that's actually an illusion. Crash Bandicoot is not going to move left and right in our case. We could have him have some movement left and right, but really I just want these platforms going to the left when I press the right hand key. So the second thing is I don't want to have my Crash Bandicoot kind of lagging, like having to press every time I want it to move. I want to be able to hold it. So it's going to go in the update instead of a key press. So under the update floor, fruit and crystal, let's do all that at once. So if I have if, I'm going to check is a key down. I'm going to ask if the key dot right is down. Now, if that key is down, I want all the floor to go to the left. I've got 4 floors moving. So I could do something like floor 0 dot x, and then I could -5. And this would definitely work. So we can go and try that out. The issue is, of course, we want all of them moving at once. So I could go and do that for each one, but that's going to be cumbersome. It's not great coding. Instead, we're going to use a for loop to do the exact same thing. So I'll use the for loop, and we're going to use our regular counter. Now, the one thing for me, at least when I used my tabbing through, it gave me a bad one. Fruit is not going to work here. There may be less or more fruits available than there is floors. So we will need to check the floor count. And then I'm going to move this up. And because I want to check all of them and iterate through all of them, I'm going to change this to I. Now, if I hit the right hand key, we should see that all of the platforms move to the right. Now, eventually we do run out of space and we are going to have to deal with that at some point. But for now, we're just going to give the illusion that Crash Bandicoot is in fact moving. Now, one thing you noted was that the platforms didn't move. So we're going to have to do this for each thing. Rather than write this out over and over again, I'm just going to copy and paste that whole for loop. And this time we're going to be talking about the platforms. Now, again, here, we're not talking about the floor. We're just talking about the platforms. And now they will also move to the right when I press it. The final thing we need to move is our fruit. It's pretty much the same code. So we're going to change again the count to the fruit. So it's the right amount for that list. And we're going to make all the fruits move to the right. With this, we should have a Crash Bandicoot that looks like everything is working, everything is moving. And there we go. Now he is, of course, speeding through it, but you can see all of our platforms, all of our Wumpa fruit. And you know what? There's also supposed to be a crystal there. So let's go and add that one in. Now it's not part of any kind of list. So we're just going to go crystal.x minus equals 5. So that'll show up as well. Now we almost need the identical code for going to the left. And for that reason, I'm going to copy and paste. Now, as soon as I'm copying and paste this much code, it's probably time to check would a method work here. And the answer is yeah, it would be way, way better. And so in the second video, I'll make an optimization of what we could do for that. For now, though, I'm going to say this is the end of right key. Now, I don't want to be able to press the right key and the left key at the same time. So I am going to change this into an else if. And now we just have to go through and make some changes. So we're going to ask, we don't want the right key, we want the left key. And it is still the floor we're talking about if we're going to the left. And it is still going to be a plus this time instead of a minus. That's going to give the illusion that Crash Bandicoot is going the other direction. The same for all of these. These just have to become pluses. So not a lot happening there for changes. Again, that should be a key or should tell you, hey, maybe I could do this another way. But we should check out, does it work? We go to the left, we go to the right. Okay, so there's a hole here again that we could fix, but everything else seems to be working correctly. Now it looks pretty stagnant because it's not giving me a very good illusion right now. Crash Bandicoot is standing still. So the rest of the illusion is actually an animation. So for that, we can do the animation inside of our right and our left hand keys. It's not too bad. We just have to go and access our player. I'm just going to write that this is an animation. And so we're going to go player dot animate. It's going to be a capital. There we go. Now you need to give at least 2 images to this. And you have to tell it how much time to run for. So I'm going to say 0.5 for now. You can always adjust that later. And then we have to give it all the animation pictures that we want it to go to. So it's going to go through all of my 3 pictures in 0.5 seconds. Now I've labeled them as easy as I can. So run left 1.png. We're going to put a comma between the next one. And then it's run left 2.png. And one more time, run left 3.png. Now when I play, Crash Bandicoot should actually look like he's moving through it. Oh, I'm pretty sure I put the wrong one on there. Okay, so I guess that makes sense. Yeah, we're going to the right key. Okay, that's a small fix. And the other thing I want to show you is I can speed this up. I can put it to 0.1. And we can see like it doesn't match. So you kind of got to try to match how fast it's moving. You can move it to 0.3. And there we go. I don't know. That looks okay to me. I don't want to spend too much time in here making it look perfect. Now I need the same code inside of my is key left. So again, below the crystal, make him do the animation. And this time it will be the L, which is what we had before. There we go. And you should be trying to make sure everything works every time we do this. So we're going right, we're going left. Hey, that looks pretty good. Pretty good illusion. The next thing is that he's floating in the middle of the air. That's obviously not what I want. So let's have him fall. Now in this case, we're going to use gravity or something to constantly make him fall. So we're going to go up top here and do our Crash Bandicoot variables. I'm going to make this an int. I'm just going to call it fall speed. I think it's easier to think about. I'm going to make it equal to 0. And just for the sake of, we're going to have to come back up here in a moment. And I want to know if I'm touching ground. So I'm going to say is grounded. I'm going to make that false. That's going to be a bool, not an int. So basically what we want to know if we're touching the ground and then how much we're falling by. So now that that part's done, we're going to come all the way down here to the very bottom. And the very, very last thing you want to do is you want to actually make Crash Bandicoot fall. So I'm going to go to the player variable, and it's going to be .y, because that's up and down. I'm going to add the fall speed. So right now that shouldn't do anything, because his fall speed is 0. And we don't really have a units here, but it's just like 0 pixels at a time. Now, if at the very top, I could say that fall speed, every time we go through an update, we could increase the fall speed by 1. This will give the illusion of a more accurate fall. Now, I'm not going to be able to get the picture on here in time. If you just put 1, he's going to fall the same speed at the same time. It's as if there's no gravity. He's always, or it's not accelerating him. He's not getting faster the longer he falls for. But if you put it plus equals, the first update he'll fall 1, and then he'll fall 2 pixels, and the next time he'll fall 3 pixels and 4 pixels, and he's picking up speed as he's falling. And this is going to give us a nice look for how falling actually is. Now that my Crash Bandicoot is falling right off the cliff, I need him to be able to hit the platforms and stop. So this is going to be our stopping on platforms and floor. Now, just like all the other examples of lists, I could check individually each and every single platform and floor using code. That's going to be a lot of work, especially as we get more platforms and as we get more floors, more Wumpa fruit. So instead, we're going to use a for loop. So we're going to go for int I. We've done this so many times at this point. If you're not sure how to use the for loop still, I would recommend going back into an earlier video. Now, for each floor, I want to check the collision. I'm going to do if check collision. And I have to give the two things I want to check between. So I want to check between the player and the floor. Now, in this case, it's not going to be like floor 0, because that's just the same floor 4 times. Each time I go through the for loop, I want to change which one it is. So it's going to be I. Now, whatever floor, it doesn't actually matter which floor I'm hitting in this case. One thing is I just don't want it to fall anymore. So I'm going to say that his fall speed is now equal to 0. Meaning he should no longer fall. Now, it is important that this is happening after this fall speed goes up by 1. But before this happens, before we actually update. If you did this first and then you did this, and I won't be able to show it on the screen because he's going to fall too happen, you're going to find that he hits the floor and he slowly creeps through, because we're actually going through, we're adding 1 after we've set it to 0. So just make sure we do increase it by 1, so we apply gravity, then we make it 0 again. But we actually don't update the player until the very, very end. So that way, if we are hitting something, fall speed's already been reset back to 0. At the same time, I want to say that we are now grounded. We're touching the ground. That's going to be important because I'm going to want to jump. I'm going to want to be able to tell if I'm falling or not. Okay, there we go. We're in the air. There we go. He stopped. He's moving along. Looks like he's working pretty good. I like it. So that looks pretty good. Now I can't actually hit the platforms at this point. So maybe we'll hold off on the platforms of the Wumpa fruit and let's actually do some jumping. Make a little note here, jumping. And for our jumping, we're going to use, I'm going to use the space key. I'm going to say if is key down, key dot space. And if that space has been pressed, then I want the fall speed to become -18. So it's like I've been accelerated upwards. That's going to move them in an upwards direction. Now, one more time, does matter the order of this. We need to do the jumping after we check the collisions. If you reverse the order of these two things, you're going to jump. So you're going to get the fall speed as -18. Great, I'm going up. But I never actually update Crash Bandicoot. So before I even update him, I'm checking, you know what? I'm still touching the ground. So then I've got my fall speed is only updated after the 0. So just be cautious with that. Order does matter here. Okay, so let's just see if this works. So we're going to go and play. And you can see, woof, he shoots off pretty far. Maybe that's too much. Minus 18. So we can tone that back, maybe minus 8. It's obviously up to you. It's your preference. We just want him to be able to jump on there. And that, you know what, that looks pretty good. Okay, maybe it's still a little much. Oh, you know why he's shooting off? Because if you hold it, it jumps up. And I was going to show that even in the middle of the air, we can actually make him hover forever. So we actually want a second condition for our jumping. I'm going to say end. He is grounded. So is grounded equals true. So now we're checking, hey, are we touching the ground? And did we press the space key? You won't see it. I'll be able to hold it and it go forever. You don't actually need this is equals true part though. So it's up to you if you want that there or not. Okay. Hey, that looks pretty good now. It doesn't look like, oh, you know what the problem is? Looks like I can still do it. So just one more time to show that it can fly forever. I did set this condition and he must be grounded, which is great. But right now he's always grounded. So as soon as he hits the ground once, he's grounded. I never made him false again. Made that false. So is grounded. Now needs to go false after I've jumped. So I pressed the space key, made my speed minus 8, and then made it false. Now I don't actually want a minus equals there either. My apologies. We're gonna make that a negative 8. I'm gonna find some other weird things otherwise. All right. Oh, and now it's not even close to enough. But at least I can't double jump anymore. Okay, so let's go back to minus 18. There we go. He can mostly jump on the platforms. Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't want him to jump too far. Okay, so one more time to reiterate what just happened there. Now we're checking if we hit the space key and if we're touching the ground. Otherwise, we'll be able to float in the middle of the air. We are still able to float in the middle of the air, though, because we never actually set the variable to be false anywhere, ever. So now, when I press the space key, I'm going to get an acceleration up. And then when I hit the ground, when I leave the ground, I mean, I'm assuming I'm leaving the ground when I'm pressing the space key. It's now false. Now, if I happen not to leave the ground in that time, fortunately, in the next update, almost instantly, it will check if I'm grounded or not. Okay, so now we've got a Crash Bandicoot that's jumping. Now we can go back to our platforms. So here we've got our floor. So this is the end of floor. And we pretty much want the same code for the platforms. So I'm going to check this off. And we kind of talked about what copying and pasting. Is there maybe a method you should be using? We'll leave that up to you. And we'll look at the optimizations that we can do. So pretty much the same thing. Let's see that this works. Okay, so we jump up. That looks not great. Something must be wrong. Oh, you know what? I went a little too far. We got to change it to platforms. And we got to change it to platforms. Copying and pasting without changing does not work. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we can jump from one to the other and even make it over this giant gap. And there's the crystal. That could be the end of the game right there. Perfect. So I'm just going to put that is the end of the platforms. Now, some of you might be screaming at the computer right now, because if you go underneath, he also goes underneath. So we've got a bit of a problem. He can climb underneath. So in this if check collision, we need to have some way to differentiate between he's on the ground jumping and, or at least colliding with the ground, on which side of the platform he's colliding with. Like, I do want this. This is the behavior I want. It's kind of a weird fix, but what you can do is when he's going up, our fall speed is actually negative. So when the fall speed is negative, you don't want him to stop on the platform, because that means I'm going up. I only want him to stop if the fall speed is positive, because that means he's going down. Theoretically, that means I should be above the platform. So we can go and make that change. So we're going to say if we are hitting the platform and what do I say? It says fall speed. Now we want it to be greater than 0. You know what? I'll say greater than or equal to 0. Yeah, let's check this out. If I'm going 0, I still want him to stop as well. There we go. So that still works. Yeah, well, that problem we're not going to deal with now. But there we go. He does go through a little better. You'd have to make a lot of conditions and some hitboxes on the side, but that's a little beyond what we want to do here. Okay, so now we have collected our, not collected, we're going to collect our fruit next. We've done the floor, we've done the platforms. Let's go and do the fruit. I'm going to just copy and paste this again. It's a lot of the same stuff. So this time we're going to go through the whole fruit loop. And we're going to check the collision of the fruit. But what the big difference is what happens inside of here. I actually just want the score to change, or the amount of fruit. Now, I believe I called this amount of fruit, and that is definitely not correct. So if we scroll back up, okay, fruit count. So where are we here? Okay, we've got fruit count plus plus, so we're increasing by 1. And then we want to update the text that's on the screen. So let's go fruit count text dot content, and we're going to make that equal to whatever the fruit count is. So we're kind of making these two variables be connected to each other. As soon as I get a fruit, it updates. Okay, let's see how this looks. We should be checking all the time, making sure we've got no weird bugs, and that would be a weird bug. So we only want the fruit happening once. Now that means we could make the fruit disappear. See if that works. So we're going to go fruit.visibility. I don't know why you're giving me an error if I just can't spell. Ah, because I didn't say which fruit. There we go. So the fruit that I've made contact with, I want it to become collapsed. So that means it'll disappear. Let's check again. Okay, well, it disappears. That's great, but we still can get a lot of Wampa fruit from that. And the reason is that fruit still actually exists. We've just hidden the picture, but it's still there. It still shares the same X, Y coordinates, which is how the collision system works in this program I've made. So I just need to get it out of my fruit list. So to do that, I can go into my fruit list and I can remove anything in it. I'm going to say remove at. And what remove at does is wherever it is, whatever index. So if it's 0, if it's 5, whatever fruit it is, we take it out of the list. In this case, we don't know which fruit it is. We just want whatever one we've collided with. So I'm going to use I. Let's see what this looks like. So we go up. Hey, there we go. That's better. Kind of air jumped there a little bit. That's a little scary. Okay, so far that looks pretty good. So this is the end of fruit. I think the only thing that I want to do with you now is I want to make it so the ground goes forever. So where this goes, I don't think this one matters as much. I do want to emphasize I would definitely do this as one of my last things. So I'm wondering if we should maybe do with all our other floor type things here. So right after we move the floor, that's after the right and left keys. Let's just do our ground cycle, circle. Basically the idea though is that as soon as this one gets off the screen, we can jump back over here. Now there is more than one way to do this. You can actually jump all of them back. It depends kind of on your frames per second, how that's going to look. The way we're going to do it, there might be a little tiny gap once. It is what it is. I'm not too worried about it. And that cycle will happen forever and ever. So basically, once this first one gets off the screen, that's going to be at least negative 200, because this is negative 200 over here. We want it to jump or teleport kind of over here and start moving in. And then this next one, once it gets off the screen, do the same thing over and over again. Now, this might be more obvious if we were to get rid of some of these. So I'm going to get rid of this couple. You don't have to do this. I just want to show you what it's going to look like. Now we're going to do a for loop again. We're going to want to check every single one and not platforms. It did not guess right. Floor. So this is the end of floor loop. Oh, that's probably a better word. Ground loop. Well, I'll just put in the dash. Loop. Whatever word you want to call that. Okay, so we're going to ask the question, if that floor that we're talking about has an x that is less than, let's go with 200. We'll see how that looks. If it is, then we're going to move it on to the other side. I'm going to say floor dot x, I'm sorry, I dot x is now going to equal 600. Okay, so if I hit play, you can see I have one platform. I go to the left, go to the right, still works properly. Okay, so we go to the right, we go to the right, and hopefully we're almost off the screen, and there we go, it loops back around. And same thing, loops back around the other way. Okay, awesome. Now I just need that for all of them, but because we're using lists, it's pretty easy. We just need to go back here and uncomment those out. And this should now work for every single one. And it should give us, and there you go. See, I told you there'd be a tiny little pixel issue. I'm not going to sit there being finicky and fix it. And that's going to be the end of our Crash Bandicoot demo. So the next video, I'll show you a couple ways to optimize this. But otherwise, good luck.